Okay. Thank you for joining this the webinar series of 3. I'm going to present you today, tell you a little bit about the M22, and in particular in this section talk about the IPL for photorejuvenation. This is me. Here I am with my son. One of my passions in life is following Swansea City, but my wife would say there's only one thing I know about, and that's lasers. I spent 35 years in the laser industry. I'm Chief Technical Officer with Wynyard Aesthetics, and my background, as you can see, is in laser engineering. Wynyard, we're a training company. We're accredited with the National Continuous Professional Development Organisation and the University of Bolton. We offer a range of qualifications for the laser industry. We offer laser level 4 hair removal, IPL rejuvenation, core of knowledge. We offer level 5 tattoo removal, level 5 vascular lasers. We offer level 6 non-ablative water absorption, level 7 ablative lasers, and we work with the university offering postgraduate certificate, postgraduate diplomas, and MSc in lasers with Bolton University. I've been involved in Luminous the last 2.5 years, and using their equipment and working with them to offer professional training for a lot of their users. We know that when we look at M22, it's a multi-platform system, and we know that the demand for non-surgical procedures is high. And if you look at the survey in 2015, it shows that 50% of people are considering a cosmetic energy-based procedure. 66% of these were looking for skin tightening or wrinkles, 51% for a reduction in redness, tone and scars, something of both of which you can achieve with the M22 systems. So the M22 allows combines 4 technologies: a high-powered IPL system, a high-performance neodymium YAG system, one of the most amazing state-of-the-art erbium lasers, a Resurfax FX erbium laser, and a Q-switch laser for tattoo removal. Also, if you tune into one of the series later on, I'll be showing you how you can use the Q-switch laser for really great results on skin toning using the carbon peel, which is proving really popular at the moment. So laser skin resurfacing is the second most popular treatment, and we know that non-ablative is gaining traction for lots of various reasons. If you look with ablative, they were popular many years ago, and still people go for this procedure. With ablative, you remove skin layers. It's more aggressive and deeper. You get a longer downtime. There's a higher risk of potential side effects, but you only need one session. So non-ablative become popular because it's a lunchtime treatment. You don't remove top layers of the skin. It's less aggressive. It's much more superficial, and therefore you get much shorter downtimes. Typically, with when we look at some of these non-ablative treatments, whether it's the IPL or Resurfax, you're looking at minor downtime, maybe only 1 day, 2 days maximum. Sometimes only several hours. So there's much less risk of potential side effects, but you do need multiple sessions, 3 to 5 sessions. I'm going to show you some results on veins later, and some of these now I'm confident I can achieve in just a single session. And there's no doubt that patients, we see more and more patients opting for these, these lunchtime procedures, and they're quite happy to have 3 to 5 sessions because of the less downtime involved. M22 combines 4 technologies, and you can treat over 30 skin conditions, including hair removal. I have several devices that I can use for hair removal, but still for a lot of difficult conditions, I end up using my M22 because it's exceptionally good for that, as well as 30 skin conditions. We're going to talk about today the IPL. It's got this optical pulse technology. It's got a range of different filters and a range of different wavelengths that you can use and tune. It also comes with the Resurfax, which when you tune into that section next time, you'll see that It's got a truly fractionated, non-ablative system with this amazing technology, CoolScan, that allows you to manipulate the number of microchannels per pass. You can also alter the shape of it, so it's great if I want to be able to just use a single line at high density, and then you can choose bigger spot sizes, hexagons, circles, squares, to be able to then resurface over the top. It's got a multi-spot long pulse Nd:YAG laser, which I would mostly use for leg veins. You can use it on the face, but generally I don't need to when I use my IPL. And it's got a Q-switch laser, which is designed for tattoo removal, but I use quite frequently for performing carbon peels. The machines are easy to learn, easy to use. There are lots of different presets. When you get used to it, you can go into much more advanced treatments with them to be able to improve your results. And there are really no disposables at all, apart from some gel that you use with the IPL. The M22 we're going to talk about today, the universal IPL, and it's got a great history of innovation. Luminous actually invented the first IPL back in 1993. I think I'm going to show you some photographs later, some of my early treatments. I was originally treated with the original Epilight system for my beard when I first got into using Luminous equipment. So they got a great history from 1993. They've been over 50 years in the industry, but you can see the development. 1996, the Epilight, 1988, the Vascular 2003, the Luminous one, and you can see the various developments. So it comes with a great degree of history. Those who can remember the original Epilight, a great big machine, but again, interchangeable waveguides and filters. At the time was real innovative. What I would say is that the M22 now has been a huge improvement on that. The biggest dilemma is when you look at equipment is which machine should I purchase? No one's going to tell you that their machine is the worst. Everyone claims that theirs is the best. Quite often I get asked when I'm using my IPL, but surely lasers are better. If I've got a laser, it's much better than IPL. IPLs aren't they old-fashioned? The problem with IPLs, they've had a bad press, and there are poor manufacturers of IPL, there are poor quality IPLs, and not all IPLs are the same. So when Luminous first approached me to would I be interested in using their new M22 for vascular conditions, I pretty much dismissed it initially. I'm a fan of pulsed dye laser. I think pulsed lasers are fantastic for treating facial veins and anything red on the face. So it's pretty dismissive. I was amazed by the results that I was getting with the M22 and its vascular filter. I'm going to share some of those with you. It really is my choice now for treating vascular lesions. So I learned that not all IPLs are the same. If you get the parameters right, you can have an exceptionally good treatment. 25 different conditions in one handpiece. You've got 9 different filters that you can choose. ID filter, so you can great for rosacea, telangiectasia, vascular lesions, hemangiomas, port wine stains, acne, leg veins, various different pigmentation conditions, and as I said earlier, also a very good capable hair removal system. The biggest dilemma is people end up looking at equipment and not understanding the technology. Quite often, if you go to various exhibitions and meetings, and you'll see there's lots of different machines on show. But it's really important to go there with an understanding. If you're going to get into technology, it's really important to understand these 5 key issues. Is you need to understand wavelengths and absorption. You need to understand the depth of penetration. You need to understand the different tissue effects or pulse duration. You need to understand the importance of spot size. Spot size is not just about speed. And you need to, of course, use equipment, have an idea of equipment, and it's got to be able to easy to use to start you off. So we know that different wavelengths penetrate to different depths in the tissue. We know that blue light is superficially absorbed. We know that green light penetrates a little deeper to 0.6 millimeter. Yellow light will penetrate to 2 millimeters, and red and infrared light up to 6 millimeter. So we know the different wavelengths penetrate at different depths. What we need to look at is how these wavelets interact with different targets in the tissue. If you look at this curve here and see, you can see this graph, so you can see wavelength across the bottom going from 400, and IPL will deliver up to 1200 nanometers to this point. You can see that the red line shows the absorption of light in oxyhemoglobin, and the green line shows you the absorption of light in melanin. So for instance, we want to remove a hair, then we have to look for the target chromophore that's more preferentially absorbed in melanin than the oxyhemoglobin. So you could look at a wavelength here, and the green light here, you can see the absorption in melanin is higher than the absorption in blood. The problem with green light is it doesn't go deep enough to target the hair follicle. If I look at the next band along, you can see here that all these red wavelengths here, the absorption in melanin is higher than the absorption in blood. So the preferential target chromophore, preferential target if we use red light, is going to be melanin absorption. And you can see the coefficient here goes from 1 to 1000. So it's quite a substantial difference between these 2 points. And if you look at red light, you can see that red light actually goes deep enough to be able to target the root of the hair. If I want to remove pigmentation, of course, the opposite is true. If I want to remove pigmentation, I need light that's superficially absorbed. So we know that green light and yellow light is superficially absorbed. And you can see here that the green light is an ideal target for pigmentation because the absorption in melanin is higher than the absorption in blood. Now, when we come to targeting blood vessels, we need to look at the depth of penetration. We know that if we treat the face, it's generally red veins that are very superficial. So we really need to be using yellow light, which is why dye lasers are popular for the face. You can see the absorption in oxyhemoglobin is higher than the absorption in melanin. So yellow light is a great target, is great light to be able to use for targeting these superficial capillaries. And you can see that yellow light goes to 2 millimeters. It goes to about the correct depth. However, when we look at leg veins are of course much deeper. It's not shown on the graph, but leg veins are going to be down at this depth. So down at this depth, we need a light that'll go deep enough. And we know it's really only the infrared wavelengths to go to this depth. You can see here, which is why an Nd:YAG laser is popular for removing leg veins, because it goes deep enough, and the absorption in oxyhemoglobin is very similar to the absorption in melanin. When this is not a hair removal lecture today, but if you look at hair removal, Nd:YAGs is the machine of choice for darker skin types because it has some absorption of blood, some absorption in melanin, and it tends to be the combination gives you a result for hair removal, whereas the red wavelengths purely work on melanin. So if I was to set up if I was to look for 2 lasers in a practice to be able to remove a vein, it's easy to see why people would choose a dye laser at 585 nanometer for superficial capillaries, and why they would use an Nd:YAG for treating leg veins that are much deeper. I hope that came across clearly. You see, I run a whole day's lecture based on these parameters. So it's important we choose the correct wavelength to be absorbed in the correct target chromophore. And we know now, we didn't talk about this earlier, but we know that blue light is highly absorbed in porphyrin, and that creates oxygen to destroy bacteria. So we know that blue light is really good for acne. We know that green light's good for pigmentation. We know that 532 nanometer lasers being good, and we tend to use 515 or 560 filters with an IPL. We know that yellow light is really good for treating vascular lesions, and red and infrared light for hair removal. The thing that a lot of people get wrong is the pulse duration. The pulse duration is absolutely critical for achieving results, and it's a thing that most people get wrong. It's really important to understand the thermal relaxation time of the chromophores that we're looking to heat up to deliver the heat to destroy whether it's a hair follicle, a blood vessel, or destroy pigmentation. To create this destruction, we have to reach we have to get the cells to reach 65 to 75 degrees to denature them, to stop them living. and to destroy the vessel that we're looking to destroy. So it's important to match the thermal relaxation time. It's a great paper by Dr. Rox Anderson that you can download. It talks about the theory of selective photothermolysis. You can look at paper 1 and 2. It'll give you a great insight into exactly how lasers and IPL systems will work. So it's important we get this pulse duration right. Shorter pulse durations are more aggressive for the tissue, but essential if the target's really small, if it's a really small target like a fine hair or a small blood vessel. But longer pulse durations are more gentle, and we need the longer pulse durations for bigger target chromophores and for treating darker skin types. Easy to see this if you look at, if you can imagine you're at home, you're cooking a beef burger, you'd set your oven to 180 degrees, you'd put the beef burger in, you cook it for 15 minutes. If you were cooking a joint of beef, you'd put the beef in the oven and you set the oven to 180 degrees and cook it for 3 hours. What we're looking to do is match all we've done then is adjust the cooking time to the size of the meat that we cook in. This is exactly the same as when we perform these treatments, whether it's hair removal, skin rejuvenation, veins, or pigmentation. We have to adjust the cooking time to the size of the target chromophore that we're looking to heat up. If we don't get that correct, we won't get the right energy delivered to tissue and we won't get the right effect. Above all, you need to understand your marketplace. Is in an area where I work in South Wales, we mostly like the skin types. If you're in a marketplace where predominantly darker skin types, you need to make sure that whatever technology you're looking at has got a solution for all skin types. So it's essential to have an idea of your marketplace. We know that an IPL delivers incoherent light. So it's disorganized and random. There's multiple wavelengths going in multiple directions, and it's a divergent beam. Now, you can argue that a divergent beam and an incoherent beam is not as effective as a single laser beam on the tissue, but it depends on what you're looking to treat. If I'm looking to general rejuvenation, it's quite useful to have multiple wavelengths so I can target multiple conditions. If I can mix green light with yellow, I can get some destruction, I get some removal of pigmentation and some shrinkage of the blood vessels. And because it's divergent, I don't have to worry so much about the pulses next to each other because they will overlap under the tissue. So it depends on what you're treating, that can be a real advantage. The idea is that you choose different filters to let different bands of light out. It's a bit of a misconception because it's not quite true. If I put a red filter in, I get red light out, or if I put a yellow filter in, I'll get a yellow light out. We tend to get bands of light out. You can see here the construction of this is the M22 handpiece. You've got different filters. You've got 9 different filters: a 515, 560, 590, 615, 640, 695, 755. You've got a dedicated acne and a dedicated vascular filter. And you put these different filters in, put the different filters into the handpiece to let different bands of light out. You've also got then different waveguides you can use. So you've got 3 different waveguides you can use. You've got a small 6mm round waveguide. You've got an 8x15 and a 15x35. So if I'm going to do a small vessel, I'd use a small one. If the vessel's a little bigger, I'd use a bigger one. And for most, if I'm doing a full face rejuvenation or doing hair removal, I need to use the larger spot size. You can see another, again, looking at the different filters and what they're used for. I'm going to cover this in more detail in a little while. There's also these expert filters that we're going to look at, these special filters called notch filters, acne and vascular, and we'll have a look at these. Some machines you will have to have 9 different handpieces to offer you the same technology. So these are completely interchangeable on the machine. The machine recognizes what filters in. So with a combination of the 9 different filters and the 3 different spot size, an equivalent machine would have to have 27 different handpieces to offer the same the same sort of degree of flexibility. What is great about it is that there's some procedures where you'd want to use 3 different filters. So I may start off by doing a 640 filter to do some deep rejuvenation. Then I'd use a 590 for targeted and vascular conditions. And then I would use a 560 for doing pigmentation. But the great thing about the M22 is that I can do this procedure extremely quick by just interchanging filters. I don't have to stop, switch the machine off, change the handpiece, put another handpiece in. It saves time during treatment. It saves storage because I don't have to have a whole rack on the wall with all these different handpieces. They're all built into the machine. And of course, it's more cost effective. The different filters in theory will allow you to go to different depths. M22 comes with some specialist filter. There's a specialist acne filter which only delivers a band of light from 400 to 600 and 800 to 1200. So you remember on the absorption curve earlier, you can see that misses out the band from 600 to 800. 600 to 800 is these high absorption wavelengths in melanin. So what you end up with a specialist acne filter is these unique 2 bands of light. The first band mostly delivers the blue light because you get a peak of energy within the blue. Blue light then targets the porphyrin, produces oxygen, destroys the bacteria. But this second band of light is the light which is highly absorbed, starts to get absorbed in water. So then you get this absorption in water to start to shrink the sebaceous gland. And I've certainly seen in practice, whereas my old IPL would deliver the whole band of light, I would need multiple treatments, maybe up to 20 treatments. And with this new acne filter, generally I'm only offering clients 4 to 6 treatments to get the same result. Got a new feature on the machine, and the new one, and certainly the machine I use, is the Vascu Plus. It's got a specialist vascular filter we're going to look at in more detail. Vascular filter is exciting because it only delivers these high absorption wavelengths, 530 to 650, almost pure yellow light, these high absorption in oxyhemoglobin. And then again, it's got these longer waves of 900 to 1200. So for me, it's quite exciting. It's like using a dilase and an Nd:YAG together in one machine. You get these 2 special bands of light, especially designed for fine tear ectasia. You can also, as part of this upgrade kit, you can use the Nd:YAG laser as well. I tend to on the face, I don't need the Nd:YAG. I can do everything on the face with the vascular and most of the body. I really only use the Nd:YAG if I'm looking at true leg veins, which are really deep. I talked about this earlier. It's 3 different sapphire waveguides. You got a big spot which I use for full face and for hair removal. If I get a vein that's fast flowing or some pigmentation, I tend to use this smaller little 8x15 handpiece. But most of the small superficial capillaries I like to trace out with a 6mm round. I can get high energy densities in. You can trace the vein and you can get very good results with it. The machine has got this optimal pulse technology. Most IPLs, when you fire, you get a peak of energy within the first several milliseconds, and then the energy dies off. So what you end up with is this great big huge impact on the epidermis. Whereas when you fire, no matter what you set the pulse duration with your M22, the energy is almost completely uniform. That's much more gentle on the epidermis, so you don't get this great sort of impact and thump that you get with a lot of IPLs. It tends to be much safer for the epidermis, especially when you treat darker skin types. This is essential. So the optimal pulse, it eliminates the high peak energies at the beginning of the pulse. It makes it much more efficient, much more reproducible, and you get a much happier client. Machine also comes in multiple sequential pulsing. Multiple sequential pulsing allows you to deliver energy over 1, 2, or 3 pulses. If I'm treating pigmentation, I would need a single pulse because I need a high impact. If I'm going to do vascular, I may use 2 to 3 pulses, mostly use 2 pulses. But for things like targets, which are bigger targets, like a hair follicle that retain the heat, it's important you need to deliver a lot of energy to deliver it over 3 pulses. And by delivering over 3 pulses, it allows a delay time in between for the epidermis to cool. So you can see that I'm treating, so during pulse 1, the epidermis would heat up, the target would heat up, but during the delay, the epidermis would cool very quickly, but the target would retain the heat. So it allows you to put 3 smaller impacts in to reach our 65 to 75 degrees, but keep the epidermis cool. And with an IPL, you'll find that the delay in between, you can alter this delay in between to match the skin type. So generally on a skin type 1, I've got the delays in between at 10 milliseconds. Skin type 2 is about 15 milliseconds. Skin type 3, I put the delays at about 20 milliseconds. Skin type 4, I go much higher. I go to something like 60 milliseconds. And then doing a skin type 5, I want to have the delay at about 100 milliseconds. The machine, when you type it in, will automatically alter this for you. You can see that this is a typical screen on the machine. This is actually showing us the advanced mode, but you could, when you go into the automatic mode, you can set the machine settings for you. What is exciting is mostly with an IPL, when you set the machine up, if you deliver 3 pulses, it delivers the same energy over 3 pulses. If I set for 30 joules, this would be 10, 10, and 10 there, but I want to set that. What's exciting about this advanced mode, it allows you to alter each pulse individually, but also the energy individually. So there's occasions where I want to put more energy in the first pulse and less in the second, or I may want less energy in the first and more in the second. This comes with a whole day. I run a whole course on this, just training people how to do this. If you can get in to use this advanced mode, which is pretty unique to this system, you can enhance your results, and you can enhance your results and get much better and quicker results in a single treatment. The machine generally is easy to use for beginners. Type on the condition you want to treat. You press then, if I press vascular, you may want to do rosacea, telangiectasia, erythema rosacea, melasma, polygloma, H-spots and telangiectasia, mild, H-spots telangiectasia severe, H-spots telangiectasia non-facial, acne mild, acne moderate, acne non-facial. You can put the skin type in, decide whether you want to square or circle, put shallow, medium, or deep, and then the machine will give you several options. Sometimes it'll only give you one option, but here you can see rosacea telangiectasia saying if you haven't got the new upgrade, you can use a 560 filter. If you've got the new upgrade, you can choose the vascular filter, and it sets it up for you. And this is your augmented screen, so you can get a wide range of conditions, whether it's light or dark, epidermal junctional. Again, the machine will set it up for you, and it tends to be quite accurate. We know that luminous IPL has been for many years. We know it's the gold standard. It comes with these 9 different filters, 25 indications. It's easy to use and it's good value for money. Generally though, when people buy the machine, and I'm a fan of it for hair removal, generally they buy it for skin rejuvenation. There's 2 ways that we can rejuvenate the skin. There's 2 types of skin rejuvenation. There's photorejuvenation, where we look at reducing the color of the skin. So that's reducing our reds and our browns and using an IPL to reduce that. Then the second type is collagen stimulation. It's here now where we want to reduce the size of a wrinkle or reduce a scar, where we really want to stimulate collagen, and we can do that generally by working from the inside out. So there's 2 types. We can work from the outside in, and we can work from the inside out. And on the M22, we can choose to do both these conditions. If I look at this patient here, this is a patient a friend of mine had treated, where it was a really good idea at the time to offer free photorejuvenation. We just treated one side of the face free, then the clients tended to then hopefully they would go ahead and pay for the second side. But this is a good photograph to show you. So this lady's had 3 passes. She's had pass 1 where you can do a 640 or a 755. The luminous protocol is to use 640. I prefer to use 755. I think 755 gives us a better absorption in water than 640. Then you use a 590 filter to target the blood vessels. Then pass 3, you do a 560 to target the pigmentation. If you're going to do a 3-pass technique, it's absolutely essential to put the gel on cold, take the gel off, reapply new gel before the second pass, and then of course have a continuous cooling. If you've got something like a Zimmer cooler, you can put much more, you can put higher energies in, so it allows great cooling in between. And what you'll get then is a reduction of the red veins, a reduction of pigmentation, but generally an overall improvement of the skin tone. Now, we'll talk about next week, on next week's course, we'll talk about using the erbium laser to treat these lines. And that's certainly something you can mix in with the treatment. But you can see from one side of the face to this side, a big reduction. The skin tone's improved, the veins have been reduced, and the pigmentation has been reduced. Typical endpoint of that client would be erythema, darkening. You can see these, some purpura in the individual blood vessels, and the pigmentation's gone darker. This is a typical endpoint after treatment. What's worth bearing in mind is with this typical endpoint, it's really important to cool the skin down. And it's really important to apply 10 to 15 minutes of cooling after the procedure to make sure there's no unwanted side effects. We've created the damage. It's really important not to let the patient leave the clinic until the tissue is completely cool. And that can take up to 10 to 15 minutes. Pigmentation is very straightforward. Generally two choices, either a 515 or a 560. 560 filter is much more gentle, goes a little deeper, but anything on the surface on a lighter skin type really should be a 515. Be aware that if you use 515, you need less energy, so it's a little bit more aggressive. You have to deliver short pulse durations. It has to be below 10 milliseconds to work if you want to do it in a single pulse and in a single treatment. Generally, I use 4 milliseconds, but you may have to go slightly higher than 15 joules per centimeter squared, in which case you change to a 6 milliseconds, and with a 6 milliseconds, you can deliver the energy 17 to 20 joules per centimeter squared and get very effective results. I've made these little stencils for myself. I used to use it on my previous machine. I now have them made in stainless steel. The circles are much more in the center, but it allows me to put the stencil over the pigmentation, isolate the pigmentation, fire through, and just get the energy where I want it to be able to get. Of course, you can take the paint, you can use white pencil, and some people cut out bits of white paper. But if you can cover the surrounding tissue, you only get the damage then in the pigmentation itself. It allows you to be a little bit more aggressive and protect the epidermis at the same time. This is a typical endpoint. I say typical endpoint because it's probably a worst case endpoint. You wouldn't want it to be much worse than this, but this is someone at 20 minutes, about 10 to 20 minutes after we've applied the 515 filter. You can see the darkening of the area. Now with this particular client, we did keep for another 10 minutes after this to be able to cool the area down. So if you do get this sort of side, you get this darkening of the lesion, it's important to cool the tissue down afterwards. The area will continue to get much darker as the day goes on. It can crust over, but it'll start to flake off and it'll start to respond within 7 to 14 days. You would expect with this sort of lesion to need at least 3 treatments. This is someone you can see pre-treatment, 4 days post-treatment, the darkening, and 14 days later it's cleared up. That can take up to a month to be able to be removed. Sometimes when you're doing these treatments, you may start to put more and more energy in. You think, okay, well, what you're looking for is a graying effect straight away. But you can do this at moderate energies. You just got to wait 10 minutes to see the effect. If you look at trying to see it to go grey straight away or darkening, you may end up treating too high. Important to do it in a controlled way. And here's some results, some photographs from some of Lewis's clients. You can see this is before, 1 month after 1 treatment. Great result. On the hands before and after 2 treatments. I'm going to show you a hand at the end, just slightly differently, and you'll see the difference when I mix it with an erbium laser. So this is someone 3 weeks after 2 treatments, and this is 1 month after 8 treatments. Again, 1 month or 3 treatments. The pigmentation is fairly straightforward to treat. One of my favorite things to treat is vascular lesions. As you know, those who know me, I'm a fan of pulsed dye lasers. I helped to develop a dye laser. I'm a big fan of them. I think it's a great machine. And I really hadn't given an IPL serious thought until I started to use the M22. You can see peak absorptions here in yellow. And then if we want to go deeper, then we need to go to infrared. So we know that both yellow and infrared light are good wavelengths for vascular lesions. Generally, the smaller facial veins, we want to use yellow light because it goes more superficial. For vascular lesion targets the blood, we can use an I560, 590. Some people use 615, but we've certainly seen much more improved results with the vascular notch filter. Larger spot sizes we need to use for deeper vessels, smaller spot sizes for more superficial, and certainly we know we get improved result by using multiple sequential pulsing. Okay. Gosh, showing you the notch filter. The notch filter for me was really exciting, and I do a separate lecture just based on the notch filter. So what a notch filter does, it blocks the wavelengths below a certain wavelength, it blocks the middle, and it blocks the upper end. It only lets out this band of light here. You can see there's a bit of green, bit of yellow light, which is preferentially absorbed in the oxyhemoglobin, and it lets a band of infrared light out. So we've got 2 wavelengths that are very good at treating vascular lesions. And that's quite exciting. What's more exciting is that it's delivered in 2 pulses. So when pulse 1 comes in, you get this band, we call it yellow light for now, yellow and green light, and a band of infrared light. So in pulse 1, both these bands of light come in. But if you can imagine, if the blood vessel is very red, it's mostly just this yellow light heating it up, because the infrared light tends to work on darker blood, or almost like a melanin absorption. So in pulse 1, it's mostly the yellow light doing the work. But during this off period, which is matched to the skin type, the oxygenated blood deoxygenates and becomes a darker target. So during pulse 2, these 2 bands of light come in now. So the yellow light does a little bit, but it's really the infrared light that then takes over to do the work. So now we know that, it means that we can be really quite exciting. It means we can alter the energy of each pulse. So if I want to do a red vein, I put more of the energy in pulse 1 and less of the energy in pulse 2. But if the vein is much more darker, then in pulse 1, I'd use a little bit of yellow just to deoxygenate it. And in the second pulse, I use a lot more infrared light. So what it allows me to do is tailor the delivery of the pulse duration to match the type of the vessel you're looking to treat. And since I've been able to do this, I've been able to get results far superior to anything I've ever achieved with a dye laser. But I'm able to do it without creating purpura, which is really quite exciting. So when administrating, when doing a vascular procedure, you need normal blood flow. If I'm doing hair removal or pigmentation, I press in to take the blood away. You therefore can make it almost virtually painless, but also increase the melanin in target. But you don't want to be able to do that when you're treating a vein. It's important to get normal blood flow. So when you go into the treatment, it's important to look at what you're treating, go in with a handpiece, touch it, and immediately fire the pulse. It's important not to pulse it. The endpoints or lightening or blanching of the vessel. You'll see that the vessel will sometimes just disappear. Sometimes it'll momentarily turn blue, deoxygenate, and you know you've reached the end point. It is, especially the side of the nose, is slightly uncomfortable, but it shouldn't be hugely painful. And of course, you've always got to perform a test patch. So I'll often start on my first vein on the face, and I don't quite get it right because the energy is too low. But inevitably, I turn up to my standard settings, which are between combined energies between 28 and 35 joules with a 6mm round waveguide. But I always start lower because you never can tell. So it's always important to start lower, start the test patch lower, and adjust the energy until you see the reaction. And then you can treat the veins that you're looking at. Mostly I'm looking for them to disappear. The ones I started on in the beginning, and after several minutes, I couldn't go back and retreat them. You will get general diffuse redness in the area, but what you're looking for is the vein to really disappear. If you put too much energy in, you can create an effect like a dilator. If I put too much in, I can create purpura, but that's really not the end point that we're looking for. It's important, depending again, different IPLs have different construction. If I'm using an IPL like the M22, it's got what's called a flat top profile. So when you look at the output beam, it's completely flat. If you've got a completely flat profile, it's important not to overlap. There are IPLs where you need to overlap by 30%. It's really important to make sure you check with your manufacturer. And with the M22, it's certainly, you don't overlap. You put the pulses just next to each other. You put a thin layer of cold gel on, place it gently, and when you place it into the gel, you can see exactly where you've been. Here's a video of a vein. Show this video of a vein running. You'll see there's two veins being treated. I apologize, it's running slow. So the hiccup of the video there, but you see that the so I go ahead and fire it. This is the training video, and you'll see that the vein disappears. And you can see that on the left, the vein is much darker, and on the right, the vein is much smaller and red. When you look at the results, you can see that the side of the nose that where the veins was much smaller and more red. I used the vascular filter, 3.5, 15 millisecond off time to match the skin type 2, and a 4.5 millisecond second pulse. I generally always make the second pulse longer than the first. If the vein was to come back, then you need to increase the energy in the second pulse and make the pulse slightly longer. So if you treated maybe 3.5, and they come back the next time, you'd make that 4.5. And the energy was 19 and 12. Now you can only do it on the advanced mode. So 19 joules in the first pulse and 12 in the second. But on the second vein, which is slightly bigger, and I reversed it. I've still used 3.5 and 4.5, but now I've used 12 joules in the beginning and 20 in the second pulse. And you may, if I go back to this one, I could have perhaps on the vein here, again, perhaps if I hadn't responded, I would have reversed it. But generally, if it's red, I put the bulk of the energy, or 2/3 of the energy in the first pulse and 1/3 in the second pulse. And I reverse it if the vein is darker and deeper. And if you do that in the advanced mode, you'll improve your results. You'll be able to alter the pulse widths and energies to get any of these veins just disappear in one treatment. My vascular decision process is really straightforward. I first of all ask, is the vein red or purple? If it's red, I put 2/3 of the energy in pulse 1, 1/3 in pulse 2. If the vein's purple, because it's a bigger vein, then 1/3 in pulse 1 and 2/3 in pulse 2. And my pulse duration for a small vein is always 3.5, 3.5. A medium vein, 3.5, 4.5. And the large vein, 4 and 5. The off time, I alter depending on the skin type. So skin type 1, 10, skin type 2, 15, skin type 3, 20. If I'm doing a skin type 4, I think the machine recommended is 40 milliseconds. I tend to jump to 60 just for safety. Here's some, you can see before and after photographs, some luminous photographs. And you can again see, here you can see energies are lower, 8 and 12, and that's because you used the bigger spot size. There is an advantage if you're going to use a small square. If the vein is flowing really quickly, then it's advantageous to treat more of the vein in one go. I like to have the control of the smaller one, but sometimes when the vein is so big, it's important to switch to a bigger spot size. But remembering that the bigger the spot size, the less energy you need. So instead of what I've used, 10 and 20, here you can see it was 8 and 12. Again here, you can see another great result, one treatment. Okay, another one treatment. Whereas before the IPL, it should have taken 3 treatments. We are now seeing, because of this vascular filter, these are responding more like a dye laser and Nd:YAG, and you're just taking 1 treatment. Then before and after, and again another before and after. Okay. And this is someone who's had an IPL and Nd:YAG, skin rejuvenation, and you can see pigmentation and veins disappeared. Another full face treatment with veins and pigmentation being treated. You can see 560 filter used, 515, and then the third treatment with 560. Again, someone who's had veins and pigmentation. This would be using 2 filter technique, probably 590 first and followed by a 560. I tend to never mix. If I'm going to do a dual filter technique or a triple filter technique, I tend to never use the 515 and the vascular filter in a multiple pass technique. I tend to use the 515 on its own, and I tend to use the vascular on its own. So the 515 tends to be my go-to filter for lighter skin type pigmentation, my vascular filter for everything red. But if I want to do a bit of everything, then I prefer to mix the 590 and the 560. Again, rosacea before and after, and another before and after, and then a port wine stain. For this, I would use a vascular filter. I think a vascular filter works better for something like this, and I'd load the energy to begin with. Try it with mostly 2/3 impulse 1 and 1/3 impulse 2. Acne scarring before and after 2 treatments. Chromia before and after 3 treatments. And some more vascular conditions before and after treatment. Okay. Active acne, again, in the past, I tend to use a different laser for this because I was pretty disappointed with the results of IPL. But pleasantly surprised when I started to use the new vascular filter with this sort of dual band. So you get this band of mostly blue light with a little bit of green and yellow, but the blue light's highly absorbed in the porphyrin, destroys the bacteria, and then you've got this band of infrared light to shrink the sebaceous gland. What I tend to do is go on every pulse with a small 6mm, on every spot with every with a 6mm waveguide with the blue acne filter, and go into each individual one. And then I would tend to use the large spot size, the big square, to go as deep as possible for a second pass technique. And it's dramatically improved. It did. My daughter-in-law had really bad acne, and typically I would have expected to do about 20 treatments with the IPL. I probably would have used my different laser, but used the acne filter, and within 6 treatments got brilliant clearance, almost perfect skin. So we'd certainly seen a reduction in number of treatments. It's again someone before and after the acne filter. Again, someone before and after. Most of these would be a course of 4 to 6 treatments. So the future is exciting with the notch filter. You get a dual band of blue and infrared. We talked about the blue light being absorbed, release of oxygen, but the band of infrared light shrinks the sebaceous gland. And most users are reporting a 50% reduction in the number of treatments. And my own experience is quite exciting with it, but it's early days. But certainly something that now I would use routinely for acne. And hair removal is also good. You know that I'm really amazed by the new Lumina Splendor X. It's a brilliant machine, is super fast. But if you're in a clinic where we mostly do facial rejuvenation, a little bit of hair removal, then my M22 is a brilliant hair removal device. I'm a fan of it because I was treated many years ago with the Epidite. So those who know me will know this is my before and after photograph. 10 treatments with original Epilite. What I would say is the M22 has come on leaps and bounds. It's a much better system, and I can get better results. Indeed, on my jawline, I've had all this area treated. Now I'll have to post another before and after photograph, because in 6 treatments I've cleared all this with the new M22. It's a brilliant hair removal device. Here's the patch I tried on my leg. Children think I'm a bit of a freak when I'm on holidays with all my ball patches, but when you're a fan of lasers, you have to try it. This was after 5 treatments with an IPL. Some luminous treatments before and after 6 treatments. This is one from a friend of mine, Sheila Godfrey. Again, she was involved in using one of the original Epilite machines. This is before and after 8 treatments. This is one of my wife's clients. This was one that we treated, red hair, before and after 9. It's our go-to choice for any hair removal that's fine or light or ginger. We much prefer to use an IPL for this kind of hair. We tend to use a bit more aggressive filters. And one of the treatments I used a 590 to get some absorption in the bulge as well as the roots of the hair, but very good results. Your key question is, so it's really difficult. I mean, especially go to some of the UK exhibitions. Everyone says my machine's manufactured in the UK or Germany, but in fact, perhaps it's not. So it's important to find out where the machine's manufactured. There are good manufacturers in Israel, there's good manufacturers in America, there's good manufacturers in Germany. What you've got to look out for is the ones that people were claim they manufacture, but they're actually made in China. So it's important to ask for the certificate of origin. A good guideline is look for the machine that's FDA approved. If a machine's FDA approved, then they've had to prove it's safe and have to have produced a clinical study. Now, FDA is only a regulation in America. It doesn't affect this country at all, but it's a good indication. The Luminous machine is FDA approved. Got lots of clinical studies, lots of clinical evidence. Asking about the warranty, it's important. Do you get a warranty with the machine? But more importantly, do you get service support? My original diode laser I had didn't come with very little service support at all. Indeed, when I had a problem, I had to wait 6 weeks to get it repaired. I'm lucky that with Luminous, they've got 7 engineers in the country. I'm pleasantly surprised when I had a problem is that they were able to fix it the very next day. I think that's important. And it's important to look at running costs. How much is the head cost to replace? What are the ongoing consumable costs? And important to get a good aspect of this. Key things is to look at energy output. It's important that you understand the true joules per centimeter squared. What's the pulse width you can deliver, and can I do multiple pulse widths? I can alter my Luminous M22 from 3 milliseconds to 320 milliseconds. If I want to do a skin type 5 for hair removal, it's important I get a 320 millisecond pulse width for it to be safe. How big is the spot size? Spot size is important because you need a large spot size for deep penetration, not of course just for speed as well. And how many spot size of handpieces are available? I'm amazed I get people on my level 4 course that use the machine. They've only got 1 rejuvenation, 1 hair removal. I've got 9 different filters I can use and 3 different spot sizes. What's the repetition rate? You can have the biggest spot in the industry, but if it only fires 1 pulse every 10 seconds, it's still a slow machine. It's important to have a good rep rate. M22 can fire every second. Does the system have contact cooling? Some contact cooling machines, they'll cool so aggressively that they'll freeze over. So you're constantly trying to stop the handpiece freezing. You need to have about 4 degrees, ideally to 4 to 6 degrees on the epidermis, and it's got to maintain it. The M22, switch it on. It's got a powerful cooling system, and the head will stay cool during the whole treatment. And of course, then, is your machine easy to use? When you look at the M22, I can totally show you the screen and baffle you with science and show you it's got everything is interchangeable. You've got 3 different pulses you can go up to. You can alter the energy in each pulse, the pulse width of each, the duration of each pulse. You can alter the gap in between. But you can see from the menu earlier, there are easy beginner steps because it's got a built-in menu, which is pretty accurate. You know, I use the advanced settings a lot, but I tend to only use it for vascular. Everything else, the machine is really spot on. I just prefer to improve the results in vascular by going to an advanced technique. That was a little really whistle-stop tour of telling you about the M22. So to try and do it within 30 minutes. You're welcome to post questions, send questions in. The second part in part 2, we're going to be looking at the photofractional effect, and that's on the 28th of November. And we're going to look at particularly looking at resurfax. And I said I'd share another photograph with you. One of my specialities is treating hands. This is someone we treated. He's chap who went on. He was doing a demonstration, and the surgeon concerned asked me, would I treat his mother-in-law? And he wanted to get the result in one treatment. So I said, yes, of course we could. But what I'll do is I'll do a 515 filter with an IPL at 14 joules with 4 millisecond pulse. Then I'd immediately do a resurfax over the top. But did say there's going to be a bit of downtime. It'll probably hurt for a few days. You need to put some phytocorrective gel on afterwards. And the recovery time, the pigmentation is going to go much darker, and it's not going to look great till about 4 weeks' time. I mean, not that the skin was damaged, just the pigmentation went really dark. That started to improve after 2 weeks, and after 4 weeks, you got to this result. The hands look 10 years younger, and that's the beauty of combining it. So when we talked about a 3-pass technique earlier, where we use 3 different filters on IPL, I tend to never do that. I use 2 passes at 595/60, but I always finish the treatment with an erbium laser resurfacing. If you can do that, you can dramatically improve your results. So that's for next week. Then we do in part 3, where we're looking at on the 5th of December, we're looking at the Q-switched Nd:YAG laser for tattoo removal and carbon peels. Carbon peels are exciting. It's one of our popular treatments at the moment. Just show you a quick video of it. Video's running a bit slow on my end here with my internet speed. The idea behind it is that you fire the Q-switch and remove the carbon paste. See, the video's caught up. So you treat the whole over the area. It's quick, it's effective. Put the carbon paste on, get it to dry in, and then fire it off. And your end results are you can close up open pores. I tend to use it a lot on noses, particularly because normally on this part of the face, I've done my photofractional treatment with my IPL and resurfax, and I tend to use it on noses, and it responds quite well. At the moment, it's one of our popular treatments. So that's part 3 of the series. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer, or you can send them in, and I'll be happy to respond.
Yeah, thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much for listening.
We've got a couple of questions. So the first one is from Dr. Amir. Can you tell me more about the training with the M22?
Training with M22 is Luminous will provide you. What I like about Luminous is they can provide the training you need to get the results. So generally you have an initial day's training with a Luminous representative, one of the nurses working with Luminous. Then they'll invite you to come to one of my courses. We do a 2-day course. We talk about core parameters. We do a level 4 qualification core parameters, level 4 in hair removal. And then it's the second day is exciting. It's the level 4 IPL rejuvenation, where we look at these advanced techniques. So that would be 3 days. And generally then you have another day on site where we can look at difficult clients. If you want to go to the advanced techniques, come on one of my courses, and we really teach you how to get these advanced techniques together. So you're looking at, depends on the skill of the people, 2 to 4 days of training.
Great, thank you. And the next question is, how does it compare to a pulse dye laser?
Well, I'm a fan of pulse dye lasers. I helped to design one of the pulse dye lasers available in the world, and I've done a whole project. I love the machine, but when I got M22, I agreed to do lectures for Luminous. I genuinely believe that the M22 is the future of vascular lesions. I think the vascular filter is exciting. I can get just as good results, and I can do it with or without Purpura. When you come on my course, I will show you how to explode the blood vessel if you want, but I'll also show you how to treat a blood vessel and get it to shrink and disappear without creating Purpura, and that's the key to it. What's exciting is you can deliver, it's almost like delivering a dye laser and Nd:YAG in one system. It's truly a game changer, the vascular filter. So for me, it's a much better system.
Thank you.
My wife for that, I don't get this. You obviously don't get the bruising, and you don't get the awful smell. My wife keeps reminding me of the smell of the dye laser in our clinic, and when am I gonna take it away?
Great. Thanks, Kev. That's all we've got time for. So if there's any other questions, please email them in. You'll receive a feedback form from Luminous after the session, and you can add your questions there, and we'll be happy to help. So thanks everyone for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, thank you.